Hey guys, so today's Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. I sure do miss you guys. So, what I have for us today is actually the last standard for Unit 2, which is population and migration. And one of the reasons why this has been going so slowly is, guys, I'll be honest with you, this standard is it's relatively pretty easy information. However, the way that I need to put it together for it to flow and make sense has been befuddling me, if you will. So it's one of those things where I've done my best. If this does not work for you, if there is no continuity, if there's no flow, if you feel like it's kind of herky jerking all over the place, I really need you guys to let me know. Okay, I need some feedback for this. Okay, because you guys know you're the guinea pigs, but also I need it to be effective, and I'm going to use it for next year. So let me know. It's one of those It's one of those situations where I really wish we were face to face so I could get some feedback from you. Ugh, I miss your little faces, guys. All right, so today, what the College Board says we're going to do is we're going to look at explaining historical and contemporary geographic effects of migration. All right, for those of you guys that are taking the AP exam, this verb explain is super important because it's going to be one of three verbs that we're going to work with for our 45-minute AP test, actually in about a month, okay? More on that coming to you soon, I promise. Okay, so we're going to look at historical migrations, and then we're going to look at contemporary migrations and the effect that that migration has had, okay? And even more specifically, what the College Board wants us to focus on is the fact that migration has political, economic, and cultural effects, okay? All right, so to get started, if we were at school, this is the part where I would have this up as our essential standard in the classroom. How does migration of humans impact society? Okay, so society, we're not just going to be looking at just society. We're going to be looking at culture. We're going to be looking at politics. We're going to be looking at economics, all that kind of stuff, which are all, facets of society. All right, so where does it all start? I'm actually really excited because I get to flex a little bit of my history muscles. So I'm sorry if I go on a little too long. All right, so where does everything start? Well, where we need to start talking about is colonization. Okay, so I got a beautiful map for you guys. Colonization, a really good definition for us to work with is an attempt by a strong country. Okay, so like a one strong country. So think about Great Britain. What they do is they settle among. So they're there, they stay, they're living there, and they're going to establish social, political, and economic control over a weaker territory. Okay, so wrong direction. You guys know that this is the age of exploration. You guys are going to spend a good bit of time with this next year in AP World with Coach Glaze, and you guys know a little bit about this coming from your social studies backgrounds in middle school. But the big countries we're talking about are Portugal. You guys know they got started first. Boom, Portugal, Lisbon, go there. The second to show up on the scene of colonization was Spain, followed by the British, and the French. Those are the two that we're going to focus on mostly, okay? And you guys know this. What is it they were looking for? Well, they're looking for resources. You guys know they're looking for spices. They're looking for silk. They're looking for all kinds of things. Transportation routes. You guys know that these explorers set out trying to find the quickest way to get to the east from Western Europe. All right, and through all of this movement and exploration, what they're going to do is they're going to spread their culture. I think one of the things that I always went with whenever I taught APUSH was the three reasons for the age of exploration were the three G's: God, glory, and gold. So they go for gold, money. They go for glory. Look at me, I'm taking over the world, greatest people ever. And God, you have to spread the religion of Christianity. So missionaries, those poor folks in the Philippines, they need to learn the ways of the Catholic Church so they will be saved. All right, so let's talk more specifically about the Western Hemisphere. So if I would please direct your attention over here to the map, shabam. All right, so when we talk about the West, guys, boom, we're talking about this area, okay? Think about the prime meridian being right about through here. Look over here. This is the Western Hemisphere. So we're going from here to here. Okay, so one of the first effects of colonization, this is really important for APUSH, is the spread of disease. In particular, guys, the disease that the British are going to bring over, not just the British, but the Spaniards and the French as well, that they're going to bring over that's going to absolutely decimate the indigenous peoples already living in the Western Hemisphere is smallpox. It's really, it's highly contagious. What it is, guys, is a smallpox is imagine a really heinously large pimple that just bursts. Whenever it bursts, all that gooey, yummy goodness that's inside that infection, it releases particles into the air. And to catch smallpox, all you have to do is breathe it in. Okay, so it's highly contagious, and the native peoples had never experienced this. They had zero immunity. I think you guys know about that because it's happening right now. So what ended up happening, guys, was the indigenous peoples that were living over here in the Western Hemisphere, approximately 95% of the peoples were taken out. Now we have to go approximately on that is because nobody took a head count. No, there was no census then. Okay, so we don't know. We have approximate estimations about how large the native population was, but just know that disease annihilated them. Okay, whenever the European powers come over to the Western Hemisphere, one of the things they're going to do too, guys, is they're going to replace the culture of the indigenous peoples with their imperial power cultures. Okay, so like the Spaniards, guys, they're going to come in and they're going to take over all of this. That's why people who live here, what do they speak? They speak Spanish. This is why in Brazil they speak Portuguese, because the Portuguese are going to take over Brazil. Actually, that's going to be because of the Pope. More on that in a push. Okay, they also bring religion with them. Guys, every single one of these European countries was Christian. That was like it in Europe. That was it. You were Christian or you were like nothing. Okay, so whenever any of those European powers came over, every single colony in the New World is going to be based on Christianity. So that's why pretty much what we have in the Western culture is heavily Christianity, because the Spaniards came, brought the Catholic Church. The British came, brought the English Church. The French came, brought the Catholic Church. Now, of course, nowadays we have, Dowds here. So we have Islam, but that's also going to be because of movement later on. They're not part of the age of exploration. Okay. They're also going to bring their social structure and their rules with them. So one of the things you guys are going to go over in APUSH is like the, how the social standards were in the New World. So basically, if you were a slave, you were at the bottom of the society. And then everybody in between, all different kinds of mixed race people, all the way up to the very tippy top, which is going to be the Spaniards themselves, the original people born in Europe. So whenever they came over to the New World, they were the ones that kind of ran what will become known as Mexico. Okay. All right. So the diffusion of goods is going to go both ways. You guys are going to talk about the Columbian Exchange. That was huge. So what ends up happening is, like, from the New World, they're going to take like pumpkins. Nobody in Europe had seen a pumpkin before the age of exploration. Well, what are we going to get to the New World? Well, we're going to get horses. The Spaniards actually bring horses for the first time in the New World. Pretty cool. All right, now let's talk about the Eastern Hemisphere. Okay, guys, the Eastern Hemisphere, boom, we're talking about everybody heading east. Okay, so same disease as these Europeans. The Europeans did not wipe out the cultures and the populations of the Middle East, South Asia, and East Asia. Why? They're in the same hemisphere, guys. They had actually had some contact. Does that make sense? There had been flow of people and goods and stuff for forever. So, but over here, these people were isolated. They were completely cut off from the rest of the world. So, interesting. All right, their cultures are actually going to mix. Okay, the Europeans do not take their culture and then go take out India, although the British do try. So, like, we get a mixture of languages. We get a mixture and new different religious beliefs. Diffusion of goods goes both ways. But one of the most important things is in Europe, because now they're going to be a market, and you guys know money makes everything happen in the world. They now get access to things they've never had before, like cotton, tea. Guys, think about how tea is just like such a huge component of British life. I mean, they all take tea every day at 4 or 5 o'clock? They never had tea prior to the age of exploration. Sugar. That says sliver. It needs to say silver. My bad. Diamonds, language, yoga, spices, silk, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so those are some good effects, or not necessarily good effects, but those are some of the effects of colonization. All right, so let's talk about historical trends in the U.S. Now, guys, remember whenever we talk about North America, we're talking about Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. That's it, okay? So in the 1500s and 1700s, this is when the European countries, during the age of exploration, are going to race to colonize North America. The three big ones are going to be the Spaniards, the British, and the French, okay? By about 1700, almost every single portion of North America had been claimed by either the Spanish, the French, or the British. One of the first maps you're going to do in APUSH is actually figuring out, what part of the continent of North America did the French have. It was Canada. The British had what's now the United States, and the Spaniards had what's now Mexico. Okay, they're actually going to fight a war over this. But anyway, moving on. Migration to the U.S. Let's look at waves. So I gave you guys a table in your notes. Starting in 1619, boom, we know this. The first date. We know the name of the boat, the date, and everything of when the first enslaved Africans showed up to the colonies. That's 1619. So, and to 1800, that's when enslaved Africans and Brits are going to start moving to what is now the United States. Okay. The reason it's 1808 is in the Constitution, the slave trade is going to end in 1808. The international slave trade, not like interstate slave trade. If the slaves are here, like you get to keep your slaves, but you just can't bring any more over from Africa. Okay. So from 1808 to 1890, the big influx is going to be Europeans that are going to be from Northern Europe. So like Scandinavia, Denmark, and Western Europeans. So like French, Germans, Irish. Those are the big two, the Germans and the Irish. Okay. From about 1890 to about right before the beginning of World War I, it's going to be South and Eastern Europeans. So we're talking about the Italians, the Greeks, the Macedonians, the Slovakians, the Ukrainians, that kind of thing. Guys, this group was not welcomed with open arms. They were different. They had different languages than us. They had different religion. Even though they were Christian, they were like Orthodox Christian, like a whole different thing. So we were very poo-pooey on these guys. And then from about the end of World War II to about present day, it has kind of pivoted now towards Asia and, of course, Latin America. Those are the big waves right now. All right, so reversing historical trends in Europe, though. So now people are now coming to Europe, not going away from Europe. If we had time to be in class together, guys, we would have done a couple readings about what's going on in Europe with the migrant situation coming from Africa. It is absolutely terrible. And we as Americans are completely uneducated about this because we just are very hyper-focused on our own borders. But one of the things with Europe is now they're coming from South and Southeastern Asia, West Africa, and the Middle East. So Europe is now a destination for migrants instead of migrants leaving, which leads to ethnic enclaves. So guys, ethnic enclaves are going to be like neighborhoods. Think about like in New York City, the boroughs where we have like Little Italy. That's where the Italians would live. Chinatown, that's an ethnic enclave. So in Europe, they have a lot of ethnic enclaves now too. And of course, chain migration. You guys know that's that whatever that word is, the family relations or community relations that once, a neighbor moves, they establish themselves in a new country, then that helps kind of ease the transition for people that follow behind them. Okay. All right. Historical migrations. Is this what we're doing? I think we're doing this now. Okay. All right. Historical U.S. migrations. So the first to migrate into Americas were from Asia. Like we're going way, way back, guys, like Ice Age stuff. And people have been moving here ever since. So what it says what the College Board says I need to talk to you guys about is 2 major migrations, but I put an asterisk there because there's actually been 3. Guys, the first big major migration is going to be the forced enslavement movement of the Africans. Okay, the diaspora from Africa, the forced migration. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that because we can't forget about that migration. So the big ones, though, these are more contemporary. Okay, it's going to be the Great Migration, which is when we have a lot of African Americans move to the north. And then we're also going to have the Rust Belt. And this one's kind of new. And I don't know if a lot of folks know about this one. But what's happening, guys, is people are moving away from the north. Okay. All right, here we go. Road trip. Okay, so the Great Migration. The Great Migration is actually going to start whenever the U.S. enters into World War I. Okay, so guys, some background information on this. The United States military was still segregated at this time. So African Americans did not serve alongside white soldiers. So they're African American troops, platoons, that kind of thing. And then there were white enlisted men. Okay. So the majority, and they're the ones that saw frontline battle for the most part. So with the mass exodus of males to the front lines of battle, millions of African Americans are going to leave the South to go to the cities that are mostly going to be in the North. Okay, so let's talk about some reasons why. Let's go back to our push-pull factors. Okay, some big push factors of why African Americans would in this, in mass move is the Jim Crow South, guys. It was not, it was not a hospitable place towards African Americans. Families struggled for generations with violence, discrimination, no economic opportunity. Pretty much, if you were a Black person in the South before this time period and during this time period, you were either a tenant farmer or a sharecropper. That's pretty much it. And just a cycle of poverty. So I think you guys understand why people would want to leave the South. Yep. Okay, what's the pull factor? Well, guys, because we're in war and we're in modern war, we need ammo. We need factory war-made goods. So that means now we have a war industry economy, which means jobs for economy is booming in the industry factor. I am just stumbling all over these words, aren't I? Okay, so basically, because we're at war, we have a lot of factory jobs available to make all the things to make the war. So African Americans move to go get these good jobs. And we have fewer immigrants because of the war. It's war. We're not letting anybody in. So if you guys will look down here at this picture here, that actually shows you where people move. So one of the big ones, and guys, this is one reason why like jazz takes off, is a lot of African Americans end up in like Chicago, Cleveland, New York, that area. Okay. I don't know if you guys had ever thought about like, how did so many African Americans end up in the North? This is when. I'm seeing a couple little light bulbs. There we go. Okay. The Rust Belt. All right, guys. The Rust Belt is going to be from the 1960s to about now. If you'll look at this, look, I know it says the Sun Belt, but we're going to like interplay these two ideas. Okay. So the Sun Belt, think about the sunshiny part of the country. Boom. It's the South and the West. So guys, what is happening is that the Rust Belt and the Sun Belt, millions of white middle-class Americans are going to move from these older, northeastern and midwestern cities to go to the South and the Southwest, which is the Sun Belt. Okay, I popped this up a little too early, but it's okay. I want you guys to look at this, where this circle is. This is where the states were. Let's try this again. Take two. Okay. Inside this circle is going to be the states that had a lot of industrial manufacturing that now is not going so well. You guys know what happens to metal when it doesn't work, right? It rusts. So this is Ohio, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. That's the Rust Belt. Well, people are going to be leaving the Rust Belt to move to the Sun Belt. Why? Well, one of the big ones that we talk about, guys, is climate. Despite the tornadoes we've had and all that kind of stuff, guys, it's so much easier to live down here. Think about how much snow you guys had to shovel this winter. The answer is zero. None. If you never had to shovel snow to get out of your house to get to work, you don't want to. Don't trust me on that, I guess. I've never had to do it either, but I trust other people, so. Okay, the big reason, and this is a lot, I'm so sorry, guys. I tried to condense it as best I could. All right, so prior to all of this, the industrial powerhouse of the country, so like where was all the manufacturing happening? It was happening in these three states. Those were the industrial jobs. Why? Think about who was up here in Michigan. Guys, that was the car manufacturers, okay? This is the car manufacturing area, all right? Very vibrant economies. Well, guys, they started to go on decline because of pull factors from other parts of the country and the world. So what ended up happening is these factories are going to start closing down. People start losing their jobs. So it rusts. Does that make sense? So that's why people are leaving. Where are they coming? To the South. Guys, think about the growth of industry just, around our little school and a cow pasture. I think you guys get this. We've been over this a little bit. So to show you guys another picture, the Rust Belt area, it's mostly this Michigan, Ohio, looks like the entire state, Pennsylvania. This is also coal mining. You guys know that's pretty much gone too because it's bad for the environment. These are revitalized Rust Belt areas. So like these little towns and up here, they've actually like kind of turned it around. So like they're doing well. But the rest of these, like, do you guys notice, like Detroit, nothing good going on in these areas, guys. So sorry. That's where my car was made. Okay, so pull factors. What were the pull factors of the Sun Belt? Well, guys, job opportunities. Think about how much manufacturing has been added. Oh my goodness, because a lot of these factories are going to come south. I mean, my Toyota, which a lot of people think Toyota, you think Japan. Guys, my Toyota was made in Kentucky. What? Okay. Technology companies. I don't know if you guys know, but like software development, they started to move, like think about Silicon Valley. They're starting to move out west, go to California. Texas is huge. You guys all have one of those like fancy dancy TI-80. I don't know what you guys are using now, but guys, Texas Instrument, they're the ones that make the really good calculators. They start off as a software company and their headquarters are going to be in Houston, and they moved in the 60s and 70s. Delta is going to move down to Atlanta and establish their headquarters in the 40s. Okay. We've also got NASA. Think about it. So Kennedy says we're going to put a man on the moon by the end of the 60s. So we got to start making like a space force. We're going to call it NASA though. So Houston, Cape Canaveral, all of those things, guys, they're all in the South. And this is why. Okay, a couple more reasons. Pleasant climate, especially now we have air conditioning. It's really not that bad. Whenever you live down here, if you have air conditioning, you can survive. We're all doing it. We're okay. It's much more tolerant. Affordable cost of living. Guys, your money goes a lot further down here than it does anywhere else in the country. Okay? And one of the big things we need to talk about is like by the mid 1900s, so we're talking about like, the 40s, that kind of time, the South is no longer considered to be the Cotton Belt. The Cotton Belt was what the South was called during slavery. The reason why we're going to kind of abandon the idea of Cotton Belt is because the negative connotation that's associated with the Cotton Belt of like that agrarian farming poverty, slavery. So you no longer hear the South called the Cotton Belt. What you hear now is like the Sun Belt, the New South. Sometimes when you're talking about just the South, though, when we talk about regions, you talk about like the Bible Belt, but that doesn't reach all the way over here to California and Arizona and New Mexico, okay? That's just the Sun Belt, okay? It's sunshine. So the waves happen for this migration as well to the Sun Belt. Okay, the first cities that are going to be established, like I said, guys, is going to be in like the 40s, is going to be Atlanta, Houston, LA, and San Diego. I mean, guys, for you baseball folks, the Dodgers moved to LA out of Brooklyn in the 40s. So there's something to tip a hat at. Okay, the second wave is going to be Phoenix, so Arizona, guys, desert. Took us a little bit longer to figure out all that kind of stuff. Vegas, Dallas, Austin, and Nashville. Guys, you know that those are still like the fastest growing cities in America are still, even to this day, located in the Sun Belt. Look it up. Okay, that's all I had for you. I'm so sorry it took me so long. If you guys have any questions, holler at me. I'm actually going to keep going and go ahead and roll into the next presentation, but I'll have it up for you guys for Monday, okay? All right, much love. Be safe.